On today in terms of understanding what tickle is, what kind of commands which exist. Don't expect to, as in if you're doing it for first time, don't expect that you will remember each and everything, but over time you'll kind of get a grasp of it. So let's start with what actually is tickle. So tickle full form is something like tool command language. So it was designed to basically create a language where basically you can write tool commands, and over time it has developed to something where basically not only you can write tool commands, you can build more sophisticated commands scripting using that. So primarily it's a scripting language. You If you're familiar with shell scripting, other kind of scripting, so it's a scripting language, so which basically automates the stuff. You can do a lot of stuff, write full tickle commands, create new commands on the top of some tools also. So it's a scripting language, but it basically helps to automate a lot of stuff. Okay, so it's typically used as a part of tool language. So a lot of EDA tool or a lot of design tools actually have a shell, or which is a tickle shell, and you can basically run a lot of commands using that. So it was designed and crafted by Professor John of University of California, Berkeley. So some tidbits of history. So let's let's see why people actually chose tickle. Okay, so it's simple syntax, it's very easy to understand. There are not a lot of data types. It's very easily addable in various applications, and good enough to provide, as an even though it's easy to understand, it's good enough to provide enough programmability for complex scripts. These days Python is becoming also very popular, as in but there are some distinct advantages of tickle, why it's still, as in at least in a lot of backend tools, it's still the primary language which is used. But a lot of verification tools are now also supporting Python. So let's start with fundamentals, very, very basic aspects of tickle. Okay. So tickle, as I said, right, there are not a lot of data types. The primary data type of tickle is string. Okay. So it says characters, string. And another thing, since it's an uh, interpreted languages basically, which is not compiled, you don't compile and create an object file. It's basically whenever you run the script, run the program, it's all the meaning of each of the commands there is only interpreted at that time. So basically, if there are compilation errors, you will only get to know about during the runtime. So it's not that your compilation, creating object or a binary file is a separate process. It's a scripting language. So similar to other shell, Perl, other scripting language, it's an interpreted language. So let's understand very, very basics of tickle. Tickle typically will have this kind of syntax. You will have some command, then arguments of that command. These will be separated by space. And primarily each of these argument is just a string. Okay, so primary data type of tickle is string. You will have white space to separate commands from its name. So this is the name of the command and its arguments. If you have a new line, that means command is terminated, or you can use semicolon to terminate a command. Hash is used for a comment, hash at the beginning of the line, or you can use it anywhere. Tickle is a case sensitive language. So basically capital letters and small letters are in different. So you can have a command name, you can create a command name with capital C, let's say CO, or small co. These will be different command names as it's case sensitive. Okay. So simple, every data type in tickle is string. Typical command structure is command name, space, arguments, and first thing always is the command name. Okay, so let's get more detail. Okay, everything in tickle is a command. It's basically a command, as in whatever operation you're doing, it's a command basically. And basic syntax, as we saw, right, is command, then argument 2 command. Now this is the power of tickle. Command can be tickle built-in command, or if you create any new procedures, user defined procedure, those also kind of become commands. So whether it's tickle inbuilt command or your user defined procedures, they all follow the same syntax. So you can basically, this gives tickle a distinct advantage that you can create as many new procedure you want to create, and that kind of becomes a command. So basically, let's say you have static timing analysis tool, or someone said DFT tool, you create a new procedure, it becomes a command of that tool now. Okay, and you can run it in the same way, same set of command and argument way to do that. You can actually sometimes you can override tools procedures also, as in if the tools allow it. By the if you create a procedure with the same name, some of the tools do allow it. So tickle is basically heavily relying on command syntax. So two things to remember: basic syntax of the command, and it's heavily relies on the command. Now, our basic hello world program, very basic hello world program. So let's try a few examples what happens when we do these things. So when we do these things, and let me actually bring up a tickle shell so that you will also see what happens here. Just a minute. Let me- okay, so this is your, as in this is an online compiler. You can go to onecompiler.com/tickle. You will see that. So basically, you run, you will see hello world, and you can try multiple experiments. So that's simple command is puts command. Puts command is like a print command. Okay, it prints something either on the screen, or if you want to print in a file, as we talk about file handle later. So basically, puts hello world will print something like hello world. Puts this also will print something. Puts one will print this. Puts this will print this, and hash will be a comment. Now there are some special characters here. One is quotes and one is curly braces. So when you print this, as we saw in our example where we opened the compiler, just- so when we run this, your quotes are not printed. Okay, only whatever is inside the quotes, that is printed. Same is true with if you put curly braces and run it, whatever is inside the curly braces, that is printed. So what is going on, right? So basically, right, quotes and curly braces are special characters in tickle, and they are used for something known as grouping. Okay, grouping. So quotes and curly braces are known for something known as grouping. Okay, why do you need a grouping when you? So as I said, right, typical common command syntaxes, you will have command, then space, some argument, space, some argument, right? So what if this argument you want to give has space inside it? Then in order to group it so that tickle does not consider because of space a separate argument, you have to do grouping, and this grouping is done by quotes or curly braces. So quotes and curly braces are used to for grouping. So here you want to say, okay, put as, and then I only have one argument that I want to print this string. So since you only have one argument, if you don't use quotes, space will cause tickle to think there are two arguments, and then it might error out. So that's why you use quotes to group all these things together. There are quotes or curly braces. There is some difference in terms of when you use quotes versus when you use curly braces. We'll talk about that as we go along. Okay, basic variable, every basic variable in a tickle is string. Even if you are using a number, it is a string. Okay, so every basic data type of tickle is a string. In order to use a variable, you don't need to define a variable. Like you don't have to say, okay, x is a variable of type string. You don't have to do that. Everything, you don't need to define variable, because basic data type of tickle is string. So if you don't define anything, it will treat that as a string. Okay, so let's say I want to create a variable var, and set some value, the syntax of that is set where whatever I want to set it to. So now note that even though it's a number looking at it, in Tickle it will be stored as a string. Okay, so it's a string 5. Okay, so I say set my underscore string codes, another codes, and I have become comfortable in them, right? So these codes are used for grouping. So it will be stored as one string variable as this full. And why are we using codes? If we don't use codes, it space will cause Tickle to think these are separate arguments, and which we don't want. So to set a variable, basically the syntax is set name of the variable and whatever value you want to set. Okay. Why do you have to define a variable? No, you don't have to define what data type it is, because every data type in Tickle is a string. You want to substitute a variable or want to use a value of the variable, then let's say if I defined a variable b and I want to use the value of b somewhere, the syntax to be used is $b. Okay, so I can say, okay, I defined a variable var, and now I want to set another variable b, set b to var. I will say set b $var. Dollar meaning is value of that variable. Var is name of the variable. $var is the value of that variable. So I can say set b $var. Now what will happen is b will get whatever is the $var value, which is 5. So b will become 5. There is another command way to use set command. When you use set b but you don't give any argument, then it prints the value of variable b. It does not set anything, but it just prints the value of variable b. So let's see this one set example on our compiler. Okay, so let's say so we'll see some of these examples. Let's say set a equal to 5, and although I don't need to put in quotes, I'm putting in the quotes. Set a 5 and set b $a, and let's say we say set b. Let's see run what happens. So program did not output anything because we didn't print any value. If you want to print any value, we have to use, let's say, put as $a. As $b. So it printed 5, of course, a because a was 5. And then b I assigned to $a, which is the value of a, which was 5. So b also became b. This command still did not print anything. It just basically set b returns what is the value of b, but since you're not printing it, it's not doing anything. So how to use it, we will come to it. Okay. So these are the basics of Tickle. Let's now continue. Now suppose you want to use output of a command and use the return value to assign something. For example, how do you get a value result of a command, right? So I said, right, Tickle has command name and space. Okay. If you want to return the value of this and use it somewhere, then you close it by square brackets. When you close it by square bracket, that acts as a command substitution, and you can use that to use the result of that command. For example, as I said, right, set variable name without any value will return the value of that variable. Now, let's say I want to give that value of to variable to something else. So let's say I set to 5, then set b set var will return something which is the value of var, and I want to set it to b. Then the way to return a value and output to something is by closing it by square bracket. For example, there is a function called string length. It returns the length of the string. And let's say if I want to set it to some variable, what I can do is, let me show it on the compiler window, what I can do with that is, so we basically said, okay, set b returns the value of a variable. So let's say I want to set this to another variable C, but I want not return of this value. So in order to get a return of this command, I can use square bracket. Okay, now I can say put as $C, it will print that. As I said, let's say there is another function string length. So I say, let's say my variable E is because is now set, let's say L, let's say which is length, and string length. Ignore for now what is string length. Let's say it's string length returns is a function which returns the length of a string. So string length returns the length of a string, and I want to set that length to variable L. And then, so in order to do that, I will put that in square bracket and return it. So now put else, I will just print its value. So let's see what is being printed. So first I have 5, 5, and let's see right here. Okay, so set, let me remove this put as earlier and remove this put as also. So now we are printing C, which is output return of this function set B. Set B will return what value? Value of the B. So value of the B is 5. So C becomes 5. So when I do put S, it gets 5. Now set E is some string. This string length function gives the length of this string. And when I put it in the square bracket, it returns that value. And that value, I want to store it in L. So that goes into L, and then put as L will return it. So how many, what is the length? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And that is what it is returning. Okay. So that's how you get output of a function from Tickle. So let's continue. These output values can be hierarchical, right? You can have multiple square brackets in a line, and each of them then is basically returned together, right? So basically, let's say I can have multiple string lengths, right? So I have string length this, string length this, string length this. So it's hierarchical. What is the innermost? So basically, interpreter will go from left to right, and as each right bracket is encountered, the command value is evaluated. So how does this work? So basically, I will interpreter or Tickle compiler will go from left to right. So it will say, okay, I encountered first bracket 1, then I encountered second bracket 2, then I encountered third bracket 3. Now I encountered a close bracket. So as soon as I encountered a close bracket, I will execute this function. So basically this will return some value. Then it goes next. It basically encounters another close bracket. So then it will execute this procedure or command. Then it encounters another close bracket. So then it will execute this command. So let's say its length is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. So this is length is 21. So you get 21. Now next function is still string length. So it says 2 strings. So you get 2. And next length is string length. So you get 1. So finally your output is 1. So how it works is it starts from the left, starts counting as it encounters each bracket, and whenever it encounters closing bracket, as soon as it encounters this closing bracket, it executes the innermost command, then next one, and so on. Okay, so this is how, when you have multiple brackets, how the command substitution works. Any questions? Anyone has any questions? So since we are covering fundamentals, I'm going a little slow. I know some of you may know Tickle and it may seem slow, but as in if you all feel slow, then let me know. I can move faster. Okay. So we have then basically $A. We talked about $A returns the value, but let's say you want not $A, but you really want a dollar character in your string, then basically then you can use backslash to, then it will give you a literal value of that. Okay. Or basically, if you want to continue in the next line, so let's say something tickle commands and at the end of the line, right? So as soon as the end of the line happens, the command will end there. But if let's say you don't want to do that, you have a command which is big and goes till the next line, then you can use backslash at the end of the line to continue your command to the next line. So by default, your commands will end at the end of the line as soon as it sees a new line character. But if you put a backslash, you can have commands which can be in multiple lines. So now come back to our basic thing, grouping, right? As in, so what are the ways to group, right? Why do you want to group? Okay, let's see. Okay, so you need grouping because tickle treats space as a separator for command argument. So let's try. Let me try to show you. Okay, so let's say I write put as Vikas, okay, and let's say I try to run it. It runs into a syntax error. Why? It basically is looking for first. Basically, it's supposed to have only one argument and ignore the how it is reporting the error. But since it's finds more than one argument, because arguments are separated by space, it's not able to figure out what is going on. So as soon as I group it, that means it says, okay, there is only one argument because this now becomes one group. Then it is able to understand this. So grouping is required because by default tickle sees space as command separator. Now there are two ways to group. One way to group is with double quotes and with second with curly braces, and we had seen some of those examples. Okay, so let's see what is the difference. When you do grouping with double quotes, okay, when you do grouping with double quotes, the whatever is inside is substitution. What are two kinds of substitution we have seen? Variable substitution, which means $A means value of that variable. And second kind of substitution we have seen is command substitution. If you have square brackets and whatever is inside that, that command is executed and value is substituted. So when you group using codes, then substitution happens inside that. Okay? And what I mean by substitution is your variable substitution will happen and command substitution will also happen. Okay, so you basically, when you say this here, $S will take value which is guitar and string length will be substituted and value will be executed. What if you wanted actually your string to be $S exact literal, not value of $S like guitar? Then you use curly braces grouping. When you use curly braces grouping, then inside value or commands are not substituted. So let's see this example, right? Let's see the same thing in two examples. One, we do grouping by codes. Okay, so let's say set S, and let's say I say alpha, and I say put $S. So this is grouping by code, so value will be substituted. But if I do grouping by curly braces, then value will not be substituted. Okay, so you see here, because is here $S value will be substituted. So variable S value is alpha. So you see because is alpha. But here value is not substituted because curly braces does not allow substitution. So you'll see exact literal character $S value is not substituted. So inside curly braces, whether it's variable or command, those are not substituted. But if you use quotes, those values are substituted. So that's the difference between these two kind of groupings. Any question? Okay. So quotes basically allows substitution. Quotes are not included in the value. Quotes get removed. Curly braces does not allow substitution. Of course, curly braces itself is not taken into account. But if you want some string in which you want curly braces, then you can use backslash to put that curly braces. So that's a high level understanding of grouping. So grouping with quotes allows substitution, but quote is not included in the value. Okay. So set Z welcome. So basically quotes will allow substitution, Z label to the, when you do this, then both value will be substituted. So welcome to the Hotel California, it will be substituted. When you use backslash, the value will not be substituted. Okay. So try these examples. You can go to the link one compiler and choose tickle language. And after this session, the homework will be to try all of these examples which are present in the slides. Okay. Before tomorrow's session. So grouping with curly braces will not allow substitution. So we covered this concept, but I really want you to try these examples so your understanding becomes clearer. Now, grouping with quotes or curly braces we have seen, right? But what if quotes inside the curly braces? What will happen? I will not answer that. You have to try these two examples after the session, before tomorrow's sessions, so that you understand what happens here. Okay. Now coming back to tickle commands again, right? As in, so we have seen what is a typical command syntax. Typical command syntax is command name, argument, argument one, argument two. Arguments are separated by spaces. If you have spaces in your arguments, you want them to be considered single argument. You have quotes and curly braces to group them together. Now let's see how tickle, when you give a command, how tickle interprets it. Okay, how tickle understands it. So what are the steps of command evaluation in tickle? So step one, tickle identifies what are the commands. Okay, so first, because first argument is command. So what is a command? What is a command it has to run? What is a procedure it has to run? Then it sees what is the grouping. Then basically it does substitution. It does substitution only one time. What is the meaning of that? Let's say if I write $$a, so it will come here, but let's say a is equal to 4. So it will do only one time substitution. So when it passes through the command, it will just want to do one time substitution and it will become $4. Does not mean, let's say a is equal to b, then it will do two times substitution, and now let's say b is equal to 4, it will become 4. It will only do one time substitution. Okay, so only one pass it will do for substitution. Then it will pass all the arguments to the command, and of course then the command will evaluate. So as in, rest is common sense. The only thing is, important thing to keep in mind is only one pass for the substitution. Sometimes that confuses people. So try, if you try this like $$a, this example I'm talking about, and let's say a is equal to b and b value is 4. Some people expect to see 4 here, but no, it will appear as $b because only one time substitution happens. So grouping, we have talked about grouping with double quotes, we have talked about grouping with curly braces and grouping with square brackets. So try all of these examples, your concepts, as I said, more you try it, your concepts will become clear. You can only learn as much as by listening. You will learn more by doing, and that's why I kept this boot camp little bit longer duration, so you have a lot of time to practice. Okay. Now, so we talked about grouping types. You can do grouping with quotes, curly braces, and square brackets. And we said, right, within quotes, you will have substitution. Within curly braces, you will not have substitution. Now, what are the various types of substitution? One type of substitution which we have seen is variable substitution, where value of the variable is substituted. Then the second kind of substitution we have seen is command substitution. And third is backslash substitution, which means if I write $$a, it will become $a, and value is not substitution. So these are the three types of substitutions which are there in tickle: variable substitution, command substitution, and backslash substitution. Let's see. Okay. So basically, let's go through this command again and how will it work. So first, it will identify what is a command. Okay. So the command is set. Then grouping. So what is a grouping here? You have one argument here, which is first argument, and then you have second argument. Since you have all this within this square bracket, so second argument is whole of this group together because you have grouped it using square bracket. Then substitution will happen, and in this case substitution will start from the middle, as in as soon as it sees this and this, it will substitute, and then it will substitute the outside the bracket. So basically first lower will be consumed and then upper will be consumed. Then it will pass this to here. So whatever the value of this, let's say the value of this is 4, it will be 1. So then value is passed to the procedure or command, and what that command will do is it will set my underscore string to value 1, and that's the command evaluation. So these steps will happen. Try these commands as I said, right, as in on the one compiler. So far we have talked about that everything in Tickle is, what is everything in Tickle? Everything in Tickle is a string, but sometimes you may want to do maths operation, right? So if everything is a string, then how do you do maths operation? So let's understand how do you do maths operation in Tickle. Since everything is string, you can't simply just write a plus b. You have to use a special command to do a math operation, and that command is expr. Okay, so expr command is used to do math operation. Okay, so let's say now let's take an example. Let me go to the compiler and bring it here. So let's say I want to do some maths operation. Okay, so let's say set a is 3, set b equal to 5, and I want to do a math operation. So I can't simply just say, okay, puts $a plus $b. Okay, if I do this, what happens? Nothing. There is no math. There is no addition which is done. Only way to do addition is to use a function. Okay, and that function is expr function. Okay, so expr function $a. Oops, why it is behaving this way? $a plus $b. But I have to store this in some variable. So in order to store this in some variable, I'll say set c. And what do I want to store? Output of this command. So in order to substitute output of this command, I have to use square bracket. Then I will say put as $c, and let's see what happens. You get 8 as an output, which is a function of this. What if I have this 3a? So everything in Tickle is a string, right? So let's see what happens. You get an invalid expression because this is when it converts that string into a number. Expression function will give an error because it's not a pure number. Okay? So basically, in order to do math operations, you have to use a command known as expr. So again, try these examples. I have written some examples to be tried out. Try those examples. Then let's see what are the basic mathematical operations. So these are not very different from any other operations. These are arithmetic operators. Actually, these are equality operators. We'll talk about that later. These are arithmetic operator: plus, minus, multiply, divide, remainder, negate. Okay, so try these operators using the expr command. These are equality operators. Actually, it should not be here. We'll talk about These are not arithmetic operators. These are equality, inequality operators, logical operators. We'll talk about as we go along. There are some additional math functions which are there in Tickle, like sine, cos, floor, log to the base 10, square root, absolute value, integer, and round. And these are, as in if you've done any of the programming languages, these are well-known functions. I'm not going into details of each of these functions, but you get the idea, right? So these are also the functions you can use, which are built-in math functions of Tickle. So we basically understood commands, grouping, how does command work, substitution, execution of commands, then how do you do math operations. Now let's understand string, which is one of the main reason Tickle is used, string processing. Okay. So let me first check if there is any question. Are there any questions guys want to ask? Okay. So let's continue in the string processing and what are the various string functions. Okay. So string is also like a command, like expr was a command, set was a command. Similar to that, there is a command called string. There is one difference from the kind of commands we have seen so far. What we had seen was there was command like set, and then after that variable name, and then the arguments will start. Okay, so basically command and what it is supposed to do used to end here. Set command is supposed to set, and then you start having arguments. In string command, it's same as in you have string command, it's small lower cases. Then the second argument is a specific function of string command. Okay, so string length means you want to calculate length of a string, or string equal, you want to check whether two strings are same or not, or equal or not, right? So first is always a keyword string, which is the name of the command. Second argument is a specific string operation you want to do. So string length returns the number of characters in a string length, and you give the string, it will return the number of characters in a string. Of course, you can do $a, that will do variable substitution. String equal, and then it expects whether you want to do case. This within the question mark means it's an optional thing. You can give this option or not give this. And if you give this, then it will do comparison without case insensitive. If you don't give this, then case sensitive. And then it will expect two strings, string 1 and string 2. It will return 1 if two strings are same, otherwise non-one value. Okay, so it will return 0. Typically it will be 0. So basically if two strings are same, it will return value 1. If two strings are not same, then it will not return value 1. So string is the keyword that is used to do string operation, and second is what specific string operation you want to do. Like string map, basically it's an interesting function. String map, what it will do is string map, basically it will map the string. So basically what it will do is B, it will change to L. It has to be, after string map, it has to be even number of elements, even number of characters. B, it will change to L. O, it will change to E, and it will change to D. Okay, so basically B will change to L, O it will change to E, and it will change to D. Okay, so bond it will change to LED. So basically, string map is an interesting function. You give first string map, then you give a mapping table. How it is a table? Basically, you give an even pair of list where first will be replaced by a second. Basically, B will be replaced by L, O will be replaced by E, N will be replaced by D, and then you give the string on which you want to do an operation. It accordingly it will change. Okay, so this is character map. It's string map maps one string to another based upon the character map that you have given. String lower will convert that string into lowercase. String to upper will convert that string to uppercase. Each character will move to uppercase. Of course, it's if it's already each character is uppercase, no change will happen. But each character it will move to either lowercase or uppercase, depending on which command you use. Okay, so far we have seen strings in Tickle, right? So strings are singular elements, right? As in there is only one element. Okay? Now, what if you want to save a group of elements, something like say if you worked in arrays in other languages like C, then how do you what kind of what data type is there for that? And the data type for there is list. Okay, so what data type if you want to store more than one element in a variable, that is known as list. So tickle list. Okay. So let's go into. So tickle is a sequence of values. So far we had seen like defined a variable s, and that was only one variable value. Tickle list is a sequence of values. Okay. Now each value typical to, let's say, similar to C arrays, it's indexed in numbers. Okay. So think of this as list as a collection or a sequence of values. So there is index 0, index 1, index 2, index 3, index 4, index 5. So index starts from 0. Here there'll be one string. Here there'll be another string. Here it will be another string. Here it will be another string. Here it will be another string. And here it will be another string. So this is how you store in an array. Each element of an array is string, index, or it can be something else also, it can be list also. Oh, so basically each index is indexed in numbers and the index starts from 0. So let's see. Okay. So let's say we want to create a list. So list is a collection of string variables. So the way to create a list is you use list command and give 1, 2, 3. So what it will do is it will create a list with at 0th index it will be 1, at first index it will be 2, and at second index there will be 3. So it's basically a list of length 3 because there are 3 elements in 0 index, 1 index, and 2 index. And at index 0 value is 1, at index 1 value is 2, and at index 2 value is 3. So that's one way to create a list. Another way to create a list is to split a string. Okay, so let's say there is a split command. What split command does is if you give it a string and its character, split character, it will split this string into a list with this character. Okay, so basically whenever this character comes, which is a space character, it will create a new index. So what it will do is at 0th index it will put just, and then space. So space is a separator, so here it will start another element. So another it will put at index 1, then space, which it will use as a separate, or it will break or split using space. So at index 2 it will put this, index 3 it will put this, index 4 it will put this, and index 5 it will put this. So split is another command by which you can create list. Now some useful list commands. Okay, so similar to string length, there are functions you can do on the list. L length function will get the length of the list. So basically L length and list dollar list name will give you length of that list. If you want to return a particular index of a list, L index dollar index list name and which index you want to return will give you that index. So for example, I have, let's say 0, 1, 2, and let's say this is A, B, C, 3, D. So L index 2 will give return a value C. Then if you want to append to a list, L append, not no dollar here, 5 will append another element 5 to the end of the list. Okay, So these are some of the useful list commands. And again, as I'm saying, right, you have to practice all of these examples before tomorrow's session, so that next week you'll have some labs to do, which will be built upon this, so that you are able to do this. Now you can search in a list. What does that do is else search list dollar list name. This means search for value 2 within that list. And what will it return? It will return the index. So for example, let's say I have this A, B, 2, X, 0 index, 1 index, 2, 3. So if I do this and ask it to search for 2 in this list, it will return index 2. That at index 2, this is there. Suppose 2 was not there. Let's say this was U. So then it will return -1 if that index does not exist in the list. Similar to split command, you can use join command. Join command can be used to convert a string, a list to a string. Okay. Split command can be used to split a string into a list. Join does the reverse. So basically, it will join all the elements of the list, and in between it will add space. If you don't want any character in between, just do two double quotes without anything. If you add a space or you want to add a dot, whatever, you can choose any one of the joining character. Okay. So we understood what is list. Try these examples, as I said, right? Then only it will start making sense. Some of you are familiar with basics. Maybe you can skip or maybe do it faster. But whoever is learning Tickle for the first time, it's very important to try each and every command that I have covered. And as I said, right, just go to one compiler, search for one compiler. You'll get it's on the browser, and just try all these examples. Now, like any other language, like anything else in Tickle, control structures are also commands. And these are normal control structures like any other command. You have if and else and else if. You have switch. Switch is like a case statement. We'll cover that. Then you have while loops. Then you have for each loops, and you have for loops. So we'll cover each of them as we go. So first is if. Okay. So one of the important thing when you're writing an if loop is one of the common mistake which is done is if, then you have to add a space, because in Tickle arguments are separated by space. So think of if as a command, then this is one argument to the command. Then so you need to have a space, and then this is second argument, you need to have space, and this curly braces is grouping all the arguments together. So syntax for if is if condition, whatever condition you want to check. So this is an equality operator. If x is equal to 0, then curly braces else. So you have to follow this syntax. Puts that it is divided by 0. Else you divide by whatever the division you wanted to do. Okay. So again, keep in mind, if you need to have a space, this is one of the common mistake which is done. Then of course, like in normal language, you will have if condition, and you will have else. You can have else if also, and that is also there. So if, else, and else if. Normal control structure like in typical languages. So if, how do you use else if? If, else if, and then you can have else if you want to. So add everything between the curly braces. Between the curly braces, it's each command is followed. Curly braces positioning is, as I said, is very important. If you put it in the next line, it will not work. So you have to put positioning of curly brace here, so that it knows next is a grouped argument. Okay. Now switch. What is switch command? Okay. So switch command is kind of, let's say if you're familiar with some of the languages, I think it's called case. So what happens is when you want to do if, okay, and let's say there are so many cases. Let's say when x is equal to 0, you want to do something. When x is equal to 1, x equal to 2, x equal to 3, x equal to 4. Let's say you have multiple cases. Okay, here you want to do something, 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 and here you want to do something, right? So then it becomes like really lengthy. Like you'll have to write so many if, else if. So in order to simplify that, there is basically when there are too many branches, there is something called switch. Okay. So switch, let's ignore exact for now, which we'll cover later. Switch, then value, whatever this variable is. Then it's like this. When value is 1, do something. When value is 2, do something. So rather than writing so many if, else if, you can write this way: switch, value. When value is 1, whatever you want to do, it can be more than one line. When value is 2, whatever you want to do. And default is kind of else when it does not match any of the previous things. So try this function also. It's basically just to simplify when you have too many branches of if, then this is preferred. Okay. Then while, as in it's while loop, you know what it does as in as other languages. So while loop, one thing here is this construct which we have not seen, INCRI. INCRI is an operation which increases the value of a variable by 1. So INCRI means increase I by 1. So it's like I plus plus if you use C language. So INCRI increases I by 1. So INCR is increment I. Increment I, you can also have, let's say, increment I2 means it will increase I by 2. But if you just give INCRI, it will increase by 1. Other than that, it's similar to any other while loop you would have seen. So for loop, similar to that. For only difference you would see is for, then space, you will have first initialization, then your checking condition, and then your increment condition. So like any other language, you have for loop three conditions: initialization, checking condition, and increment and condition. And each of this has to be within the curly braces. And I said, right, INCR I will increase by 1, but if you give some value, then it means like I is equal to I plus 2. Okay. For each loop. So in addition to for, there is a very special loop which is in Tickle. It is called for each loop. Basically, for each loop is very useful for list. So for example, let's say you want to go over each element of a list. Of course, you can go through for loop, write like this: for loop initially 0, $I less than length of the list, increase I, but it becomes cumbersome. Right? And Tickle, at a lot of times you want to go over each element of the list. So then it's a simple for each can do that. For what it does is for each element, this is not a keyword, this is just a string, then give list. What it will do is it will go over each of the list. So it will basically first element will become when, then element will become you, then element will become say, then element will become nothing, then it will become add, then it will become all. So it's basically going over each element of the list. So syntax is for each. This is a keyword. Element can be anything. This can be x, for each x, then your list name, and within curly braces, it will basically keep giving to element each value of that list. So for each is useful. It simplifies when you want to go over each element of the list. Sorry, just a minute. You can have multiple for each. So for each, typically, as I said, right, it goes over each element in the list, but it or element 1 and element 2. Then it will go over the element 2 by 2 rather than 1 by 1. You go by 2 by 2. Of course, you need for this to work, you need to have even number of elements in this. But what will happen now is element 1 will get when, element 2 will get you, so when and you. Then element 1 will get say, and element 2 will get nothing, and then element 1 will get add, and element 2 will get all. So it will go 2 by 2. It will pick up two elements at one time, and first will get first index value, and second will get second index value. So this is, you can, of course, for this to work, there should be even number of elements in the list. If they're odd, it will error. In addition to that, there are some special constructs, like for example, break. Break will come out of the loop. Okay, so let's say for loop, right? For I equal to 0, I equal to CRI, increase I by 1. Now, let's say if you say, okay, if $I equal to 4, break. It means basically it will start from I equal to 0, then go 1, 2, 3. But as soon as it says break, it comes out of the loop, and after loop, whatever is the first line, it will start executing. So it will come out of the innermost loop. So break means stop the loop, come out of the loop, and whatever is the next line after the loop, execute it. Then there is something called continue. Continue means stop this iteration of the loop, go to the next iteration. So rather than break, if I do continue, it will basically come in the loop for I equal to 0, 1, 2, 3. Then for 4, when I see continue, let's say it will not execute next lines in the loop, but it will go back to the beginning of the loop and start executing the loop with 5. So difference between break and continue is break, it will just end the loop, nothing else will be executed, and whatever is the next line after the break, it will execute that. But if it's continue, it will execute next iteration of the loop. So basically, where these work, break and continue in the while loops, for loop, and for each loop. Okay. So break, right? So for, I think I covered this example, set I 0, I less than 10. So as soon as 4 comes, it will not print anything here and just come out the loop and go here. You can try this example. But when it's continue rather than break, if I say continue, it will go to the next iteration of the loop. So it will come here with 5. What will be the difference? Because this put si is after this, in the first case, it'll come out of the loop, it will only print value till 3, and that's it. Here, for 4, it will not print value, but for the rest, it will continue printing.